Hello everybody, today we're going to take a look at another political shift. This time it's going to be 1968 to 2020. So here's a little bit of background about the 1968 election. It was won by Richard Nixon. He got over 300 electoral votes, carried 32 states, and he got over 43% of the popular vote. The Democrat was Hubert Humphrey. He got 191 electoral votes, carried 13 states plus DC, and he got just under 43% of the vote. So it was close for the popular vote. Nixon with the clear advantage in the Electoral College. Now the other thing to mention here is there was significant third-party vote. As you can see, George Wallace ran as an American independent. He did do well in the Deep South. He got 46 electoral votes and carried 5 states and 13.5% of the popular vote. So that's going to be something that is going to factor into these shifts. Obviously in 2020, there was not that kind of third-party vote, so keep that in mind as we go through these states. So back to my usual spreadsheet here, and at this point you either love this thing or you hate it, but it does have all the data, and in the first column it's the states. The next column is the 1968 Democratic vote, that is Hubert Humphrey, followed by the 68 Republican vote, Richard Nixon. The next column is the 2020 Democratic vote, Joe Biden, followed by the 2020 Republican vote, that is Donald Trump. The next column are the Democratic shifts between those two elections, followed by the Republican shifts, and the last column is the net change between the two elections. And I also have some shading in this column. The darkest colors are going to be over 10-point shifts. The lightest colors are going to be under 5-point shifts. So 3 levels of shading. Let's get started here in Alabama. In 1968, Hubert Humphrey, he only got 18.7% of the popular vote. Richard Nixon, he did even worse. He only got 14%. The winner of this state was George Wallace. This was also his home state. He was the governor there. He got about 66% of the popular vote. So if we jump ahead to 2020, Joe Biden got 36.6%. Donald Trump got 62%. That is a net gain of 17.9 for the Democrats and a net gain of 48 for the Republicans. So that's a total net shift of 30.1 away from the Democrats and toward the Republicans. So now you have an idea how this works, and we can quickly go through the rest of these states. Alaska, that shifted toward the GOP by 7.4. Arizona, that went hard toward the left by 20.1. Arkansas got a lot redder by 27.2. California, that shifted toward the Democrats by 32.3. Colorado as well by 22.7. Connecticut by 14.8, Delaware by 22.4, Florida the same direction by a smaller 6.3, Georgia by an even smaller percent of 3.9, and also in Hawaii by 8.3. Idaho, that went back toward the Republicans by 4.7. Illinois had a hard blue shift of 19.8. Indiana, a lighter red shift of 3.7. Iowa got bluer by an even 4%. Kansas, same direction by 5.4. Kentucky went toward the Republicans by 19.8. Same in Louisiana by 23.3. Maine actually got a little bit redder since 68 by 1.1%. Maryland had a huge shift toward the left by 31.5. Massachusetts, that's a blue state today, and it only got bluer by 3.4. Michigan, that got redder by 3.9. Minnesota, that was Hubert Humphrey's home state back in 1968, and since then it shifted 5.4 toward the GOP. Mississippi got a lot redder by 26. Also in Missouri by 14.2. Montana got a little bit redder as well by 7.3. Nebraska got bluer and went toward the Democrats by 8.9. Nevada cracked double digits toward the Democrats by 10.6. New Hampshire also in that direction by 15.5. New Jersey by an even 18, New Mexico by 22.9, and New York by 17.7. North Carolina also shifted toward the Democrats, but by a smaller margin of 6.9. North Dakota had a big jump toward the Republicans by 15.6. Ohio, a smaller jump by 5.9. Oklahoma had an even bigger jump of 17.4. In Oregon, that state went toward the Democrats by a big 22.1. Pennsylvania, mild shift toward the Republicans by 2.4. Rhode Island, that's a blue state today, but that actually shifted toward the Republicans by double digits, 11.4. South Carolina had a mild red shift of 3.2. South Dakota went toward the Republicans by a healthy 14.8. Tennessee hit a similar margin of 13.4. How about in Texas? Well, that went 6.8 toward the Republicans. Utah, very little change there, a 1% shift toward the Republicans. Vermont, that used to be a red state, since then it went a massive 44.7 toward the Democrats, and that was the biggest blue shift out of all the states. Virginia had a significant shift toward the Democrats of 21%. Washington, a little bit less by 17.1. West Virginia had the biggest shift out of all the states. That went toward the Republicans by a substantial 47.7. Wisconsin, that went toward the Democrats by a small 4.3. And Wyoming is the last state, and that went toward the Republicans by 23%. And I also have Washington, D.C. on here. That shifted toward the Democrats by 23.2. So those are all the states, those are all of the shifts, and if you want to visualize this data, we can take it all and apply it to a map, and here it is. It's similar shading. The darkest colors, those are 10 or more point shifts. The lightest colors are going to be under 5 point shifts. There's none that are under 1 point, so we have 3 levels of shading. And what are the takeaways? Well, of course, most of the South, that shifted hard toward the Republicans. The West Coast, that shifted hard toward the Democrats. The Northeast also did go toward the Democrats, with the exception, curiously, of Rhode Island. And Massachusetts also had a very small shift. The upper Great Plains went toward the right. Most of the Rust Belt, except for Wisconsin, that went toward the right as well. And down in the Sun Belt, a lot of those states have begun to shift back toward the Democrats, and pretty much everything from Virginia down to Georgia, with the exception of South Carolina. Florida also did go toward the Democrats. But again, the thing to keep in mind in these shifts is that third-party vote of George Wallace. He did suck away a lot of vote, so most of that vote is reallocated into other candidates for these shifts. But this is the only way to really do it. Take the Democratic vote, the Republican vote, see what the shifts are. And I think it's fascinating to see. We've got some dark blue states, dark red states, a lot of states in between. There's kind of something for everybody on this map. 68 was an unusual election. It was close in the popular vote. So some of the states today are voting close to where they were voting back in 68, and other states have gone in a completely different direction. A lot of states back then voted Republican that would not be voting Republican today, but that's how it goes. Over 4 or 5 decades, a lot of states develop different political identities. I'm sure there's plenty more anomalies you can pull out from this map, or find some other crazy stats in the data, but this is the map, and I hope you enjoy seeing these shifts. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about any of the shifts in any of these states? What stands out the most? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video.